Again, I'm Rachel Rosner, the president of Citizens Greener Evanston, the organization that has put all this phenomenal programming together with this spectacular team of volunteers. We're going to hear from all three presenters and then take a collective Q&A in the last portion of our presentation. So I'm very excited about this event. We have experts here to share their wisdom about reducing plastics and waste. And without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our first presenter, Andrea. Pardon me, Andrea's here, right? Yes, okay, good. Andrea Densham is Shedd Aquarium's Senior Director, Government Affairs and Conservation Policy. Created to enhance Shedd's position as a policy expert, Densham's team develops and implements the institution's policy goals. Working with diverse public and private sector partners, she is passionate about creating sustainable solutions in evolving environments. She is dedicated to empowering individuals to advance Shedd's tremendous legacy of sparking compassion, curiosity, and conservation of the aquatic world. Densham traces her love of aquatic life to her childhood surrounded by the Great Lakes and young adulthood spent working on the New England Aquarium's whale watch boats. Wow, what a bio. I'm so excited to have Andrea here, and sort of co-presenting or fielding questions with Andrea is her colleague, Jacqueline Wagner, the Director of Conservation Action at Shedd Aquarium, where her team mobilizes individuals, communities, and businesses to take action for animals through activities like restoring local habitats, opting for sustainably sourced seafood, and reducing their plastic use. So how exciting. And I'll introduce other presenters as it's their turn. So once again, please enter questions in the chat even as people are speaking, and take it away, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you to everyone. I'm gonna see if I can make the technology work well today. It is a great honor to have my colleague Jacqueline Wagner here with me. I'm an Evanstonian. I live in Evanston. I'm not born and raised, as you can tell from my bio. I'm from Michigan, so I don't want to say what I'm not, but I do live here and love it. And Jacqueline's my dear colleague who I work really, really closely with, and we're a team. I'm the policy wonk, and she's the one working in the field with our business partners, as well as doing restoration work that is extremely important. And someday we can talk to you about that as well. I'm going to try to share my screen and talk to you a little bit about plastic pollution and things that we all can do together. Here we go. See if we can get this playing nice for everybody. All right, so the headline was less plastic is fantastic, and I just wanted to highlight the urgency. It's indeed fantastic, and we really need to address it, especially on this Earth Week. I think the importance of it cannot be under-focused. I also just want to level set a little bit what we do at Shedd, especially what Jacqueline and my team do. You know, we're really focused on both saving biodiversity, so that's aquatic life and the wild places they live, as well as building sustainable futures for the next generation. And we believe deeply that wildlife and wild places are worth saving, that empowering people, families, and elected officials to act is critically important. We do that by protecting and restoring our Great Lakes, local waters, and marine habitat. We get the blessing of being able to work both in freshwater and Great Lakes, as well as in the marine space. And we want to make sure that our habitat and our world is healthy and vibrant for our next generations. And we're a science-based organization. We have a scientist as our CEO. We're science-driven. We're also relationship rooted, which is why we're here with you today. And we really believe in the importance of making a real impact. We also believe that it is critical to work with folks like you to inspire action, to move policy in a positive direction, using science as our North Star, but also mobilizing and working with great folks like her on the call today and on this meeting today to be able to have a lasting impact. We know, and you all know, that plastic is ever present. It is expanded and grown in our presence in my lifetime. I'm in my 50s. It's only been in my lifetime that we've seen this amount of plastic, but that means that we have the power to move in the other direction. So at this point, however, plastic is in every crevice of the earth, in the air and in the water. We have increasingly fantastic research. In fact, Tim Holland at Loyola, just down the street from us here, is doing really groundbreaking work on that. Now that we have and can prove its presence everywhere, we can, with science and with science evidence, we can take the next step to try to make a difference. That's our beautiful Great Lakes. That's our Great Lakes Basin. We are interconnected here. And I think that if there's anything you've been hearing, whether it's from the White House or from local officials this Earth Week, I hope that you're getting the importance of the interconnectivity of water. It also, and I'm sorry, this is a little grainy of a map, but all those little green and yellow dots on this map are where there is production of plastic pellets. That's where plastic begins. And I think it's really important for us to remember that plastic is petroleum and a whole bunch of other forever chemicals. So when we create it, we cause harm. It's heavy in carbon use. It produces pollution in its production as well as the end trash. And that little picture there is of the pellets. And I think it's really important for us to understand, especially in the Great Lakes Basin, binationally here in the United States, as well as you can see in Southern Ontario, we produce a lot of these pellets, which means that it then shows up in our Great Lakes and our fresh waterways, especially streams and rivers. I wanted to talk just a couple minutes before I hand this over to my colleague, Jacqueline, about the kind of policies that we work on. We are really lucky at SHED, and I am, to be able to work binationally. So with Great Lakes groups, we have that great map showed you that we are in partnership, and we live in a binational way on those Great Lakes. The water doesn't know if it's in Canada or in the United States. And because of that, we have a number of Great Lakes partnerships that we do that are binational. We also work here across the Great Lakes to make sure that we can have impactful policies across the Great Lakes Basin. And that means working with groups like Healing Our Waters. It also means working federally, though. So just about a month ago, we helped with the reintroduction of the Break Free from Plastic Act in the federal government. It's a really large and comprehensive piece of legislation. And it really tries to tackle some of the underlying root causes of it and try to prevent it at the front end so that we don't have to do as much as we have been doing on the back end of cleanup. It really incentivizes reuse. It reduces the use of single-use plastic and especially awful things like polystyrene. It really incentives bottle deposits, and I can talk about that for days. I'm from the state of Michigan, and we've been doing that since I was a kid. It's incredibly impactful, and it's a really simple piece of policy solution that I hope that we start moving forward in the Great Lakes here in the state of Illinois. And we need to move to zero. We need to hold the folks who are making the plastic responsible for collecting and stopping and moving towards more sustainable alternatives to single use. I also just wanted to highlight in there that little bit on the right-hand side from Johnson is an op-ed in Tennessee that just happened over the last couple of weeks. I point that out because often folks think, oh, it's only on the East Coast or the West Coast. It's only on the coast that we can do this kind of work, or it's only in DC, it's only federal legislation, or it's only in big places like San Francisco that these things can happen. You all can make a difference in Evanston. Evanston can help move Illinois. And I hope you can help us do that work by thinking about writing op-eds, by providing testimony to city council meetings, to moving smart pieces of legislation here in Evanston. We can move towards reuse. We can outlaw polystyrene in our own city, and we can make single-use items only on request only, just like our colleagues in LA did yesterday. Just yesterday, LA moved forward, and it's this close to being signed by the mayor in LA to move towards making sure that restaurants cannot just give you a bunch of junk, which many of us probably have been receiving. In Evanston, we have a number of amazing restaurants that would love to partner with us on this kind of thing, would love to move towards reuse if we were able to move in that direction, which is another piece of policy solution that we could be doing here in Evanston. I just want to urge all of you to think that way. And last thing I want to say is that business leaders can lead. At SHED, we are a part of a national coalition called the Aquarium Conservation Partnership. We really believe in walking our talk, as does our CEO, who is the co-founder of the Aquarium Conservation Partnership. So in 2019, we all got together and we made a commitment as NGO, but also business owners and leaders to reduce our plastic footprint within our own businesses. We wanted to walk our talk, and we did, and it really had an impact. So all of you who are listening today that are business owners or work within civic and nonprofit organizations, you can help us lead as well. You can move your NGO or your business towards reducing your plastic footprint. Jacqueline can talk more about what we did. She actually was the one within our aquarium that helped identify our plastic footprint and move forward towards reducing it. We didn't do it only in our retail food side, but we did it in our operations as well as our retail shop. And we had amazing corporate partners who worked with us. So I just want to really encourage all of you to do that. And then the last piece is that in Evanston city government can also do that. We would be more than happy to lend a hand, explain how we've been able to do that, how we've been able to work with Cook County to think about how they can do it. And I know if Cook County can do it and SHED can do it, then the city of Evanston can do it. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my amazing colleague, Jacqueline.
That was great. Thank you, Andrea. I feel jazzed. I work on this stuff every day, but you're helping me feel extra pumped, and I'm happy to be meeting with everyone this Earth Week. I'll keep things kind of quick. I know we have some other great speakers here, but I just want to talk a little bit about how we engage the public and businesses, as Andrea has already kind of alluded to a bit. You know, she already talked a bit about the problem of plastic in our lakes and rivers. Definitely has an impact on the health of aquatic wildlife, of our drinking water, of our beaches. And for many, many years, we've focused on removing, you know, getting people out to do beach cleanups so we can remove trash from our coastlines. But that really is not the solution. We need to continue to move upstream. And Andrea did a great job kind of showing the whole system that we need to look at to make difference make change at different levels. And so moving from, you know, SHED Aquarium's approach from doing beach cleanups, you can go to the next slide, Andrea. We have been engaging with a number of different types of businesses, but especially restaurants. We see restaurants as leaders and change makers in their communities. They are places where we gather, where we, you know, enjoy getting to connect with each other around culture and food. I recognize we're in a pandemic, and that is a little bit different of an experience. And we also recognize that restaurants are in a pretty tough spot during the pandemic as well. Their plastic use has gone up incredibly. And so even though we are still in this difficult time, we wanted to launch an initiative called Let's Shed Plastic that we launched just in February to partner with restaurants on plastic reduction. And so we are bringing different resources, digital toolkit, different virtual events and expertise to restaurants that are joining us, making a public commitment to reduce their plastic. We recognize all restaurants are at a different place of their plastic-free journey. So the barrier to entry is low. We're just asking them to make the commitment, and we'll help them from there. You can go to the next slide, Andrea. We have over 150 restaurants that have already joined since February. So we are seeing that there's an appetite for folks to make a difference. We have one restaurant in Evanston so far, Kurt's Cafe, and would really love to kind of put the invitation out to the community here today to help us recruit more restaurants. This is a community for restaurant industry to connect with each other, learn from each other, and collectively make change. So if there are restaurants that you're aware of that would benefit from that kind of opportunity, please feel free to connect them. There are a couple ways that you can do that. On our website, shedaquarium.org/plastic, you can look for this pledge your commitment where you can sign up for action alerts, and you can also nominate a restaurant for us to reach out to, and we'll reach out, tell them a little bit about them to join. You can also drop us an email at plastic@shedaquarium.org. And again, share a nomination or let us know which restaurants you are interested in having us reach out to. This is really about building community, building a movement, and helping to support their industry, both during this time as they're working through the pandemic and as we come out of the pandemic, and really helping to push for a reopen with reuse, trying to get us away from all of the disposable plastic and styrofoam that we've been using more of during the pandemic. And I think that might be it, Andrea. I don't know that I have another slide after that. Cool. Yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. And I'll stop sharing.
Fantastic indeed. I cannot wait to continue this conversation and thinking about partnerships between CGE and the Shed down the line. How phenomenal. But without further ado, I'm also excited to introduce Maya Techley, the co-founder and chief operating officer of Dispatch Goods, a San Francisco Bay Area-based startup revolutionizing reusability within the restaurant, takeout, and delivery space. A lifelong environmentalist, Maya has always been passionate about leaving the planet in a better place than when she found it. Prior to Dispatch Goods, Maya was the West Coast Partnerships lead at Caviar, then DoorDash. Seeing how much single use was being consumed daily motivated Maya to help solve this huge problem. Take it away, Maya. Thank you.
Unmute myself. Oh my gosh. What an inspiring day and morning. I guess it's morning still for me, but I've loved, I joined earlier and I've just been really, really loving the content that y'all have been sharing, as well as putting together such a thoughtful presentation for Earth Day. So I really, really appreciate you inviting me to join today, and also inviting me to join, to listen in on the other presentations. I do this every day, and this to me is like, it's awesome to feel especially inspired by all the stuff that you're doing in Evanston. So I'm Maya. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I have a little presentation on Dispatch Goods and what we're building over here in San Francisco, and then our plans to expand to the Midwest. So let me share my screen. All right. So, we've been talking a lot about, plastic waste, and I'll give kind of some background on where Dispatch Goods kind of originated from. So we're looking to make reusability easy and delightful, making takeout more tasty and less wasty. So this is a lot of, I usually don't like to have a lot of words on this slide, but I figured I could share it out to anyone that is interested in reading about us. But my co-founder, Lindsay, she's an avid surfer. She actually has a background in cardiac surgery, but was really affected by microplastics on remote beaches, and understood that it was not a littering problem, it was a source problem. And so she went back to school at Berkeley and started to work on this big problem and wanted to create an infrastructure of reusability. When she sought out to create a reusable system, at the time she was working with the Surfrider Foundation on the Ocean Friendly Restaurants program, and thought she'd tackle restaurant takeout and delivery first. It's frequently one of the top waste pain points for customers that we interview in the Bay Area. And at the time, I was the restaurant partnerships lead of the West Coast at Caviar, and then acquired by DoorDash. But my vantage point, I saw that this single-use problem was just increasingly becoming more and more of a huge problem. And I only saw it from one of the many food delivery apps, but knowing that this is going to just, we're going to increasingly, and this was pre-pandemic, so we've seen numbers of, 200 to 300% increase in single use throughout the pandemic. So the urgency is here. I included a picture because I wanted to share. I used to live in Chicago. That's where I moved after college. I lived there for 5 years. I spent a decent amount of time in Evanston. And so on a personal level, I'm very passionate about coming back to Chicago and to introducing reusability to the area. And I think it would do really well. And I've been working with our friends at the Shed, as well as a number of just really eager volunteers to get reusability to your area. So I don't want to belabor this because I think we all know that there's a big problem, but we use a lot of, there's a lot of waste that's generated from takeout and delivery orders. I think what Lindsay and I frequently spend a lot of time educating people on, it's not just the downstream implications, it's the upstream implications too. We use an incredible amount of resources, natural resources, water, trees, to create single-use containers that only get used for, on average, 12 minutes. So to grow, we want to put an end to that, or use resources that can be used, thousands and thousands of times and then reused again. And I'll talk kind of about some of our decision making when it comes to our containers and why we landed on where we landed. But enter dispatch goods, because I don't want this all to be doom and gloom. So we are a reverse logistics company. That's how we talk about it. What we want to build is the infrastructure of reuse so that restaurants now, but other industries. So we work with imperfect produce, and we basically our vision is that any industry can kind of participate in reusability. So if we build the collection, processing, and redistribution pieces of that reverse logistics, any company can partner with us on participating in reusability. Right now, we focus on food takeout and delivery containers. We also, as I mentioned, work with imperfect produce on their freezer gel packs. So we collect those from them, we sanitize them, and then redistribute them back to imperfect. And now they're reusing their gel packs. In the Bay Area, we're doing it, and then they've actually launched a national program to do that as well. So if waste is and they're looking at different ways to also continue to eliminate their waste. So we're really proud to have them as a partner. How it works from the consumer's perspective. So customers order from a restaurant site, from DoorDash, or from dispatchgoods.com. We have our own website. They receive their food in reusable containers and bags. And then on collection day, the customers put out their bags and we come and collect. We have modeled it after recycling, not only to build density, but also it's a behavior that people are already used to. It also helps us manage our emissions as well as our efficiency. How it works from a restaurant's perspective. We drop off the clean containers to the restaurant the same way that their single use gets dropped off. We're also rolling out actually a new program where they can put themselves on a schedule so that they don't even have to order from us. We have just like a standing order. Then customers request the reusables get placed in our containers and bags. We handle all of the collection, sorting, dishwashing. So once it leaves the restaurant's doors, they don't have to worry about it. And then they can order again as needed, or now have a standing order with us. So yeah, we like to make it really restaurant friendly, especially, I think a huge part of that is my experience with Caviar and DoorDash, as well as throughout the pandemic. It's been really, really challenging in a lot of restaurants. When you add any additional operational complexity, it's sometimes they're not as willing to move forward with it. And so we've designed the system to be as friendly as possible and as easy as possible, as well as mirroring single use as possible, so that we can make the decision to go reusable easy for restaurants. See, oop. I wanted to share actually a really cool case study, and we're seeing more and more restaurants just making the full switch to 100% reusability. Without sharing too much of their numbers, Zuni Cafe has been around for 40 plus years in San Francisco. They did not do takeout prior to the pandemic, but obviously the pandemic kind of launched them into the need to do a takeout, but they wanted to eliminate their waste. And so they reached out to us after seeing an article in a local article that was featuring what we were working on, and said, we want to just do 100%. And we said, okay, that sounds great. They built the cost of the containers into their pricing. So basically took the delta between what they're paying with single use and what it costs for reusables. And so that it's just part of their service. So it's not an additional cost to customers. They approximately doubled weekly container needs after we launched. And they also just continue to be one of our best partners. That number of 15,000 has increased more. I don't know the exact number, but in about 3 months, they saved about 15,000 single-use items from entering the waste stream, which for one restaurant is a huge impact. So you can imagine, for an entire region, we've seen a lot of really great numbers of diversion. Our containers, as I alluded to, and that you've seen a bunch of pictures, we've opted for stainless steel for a number of reasons. One of our original co-founders is getting her PhD in waste management, and we try to avoid plastic as much as possible. We have one lid that is plastic, and you'll see it's our pizza lid. Ideally, when we have a little bit more funding and can customize our containers, we will look to do 100% no plastic. Stainless steel is a really great material for us to work with. It's great for the restaurants. They really enjoy working with it. We also are rolling out a series of glass containers as well for one particular partner, but I think we'll probably offer both. Microwavability has been requested as a feature, and so we're looking at stuff like that. But yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to share was our most recent numbers that we calculated. As of last month, we've saved 65,000 items from the waste stream, and we're only in about 25 restaurants right now in the Bay Area. I'll actually stop sharing because 65,000 from items from the waste stream. We are about to start our fundraising round, our seed round, so that we can expand to our next geography, which is going to be Chicago. So we're really, really excited. Lindsay and I we frequently say we want to go to the houses that we're invited to, and we just see so much enthusiasm from the Chicagoland area. We also have been working locally on a lot of policy. And so one of the things that we're happy to help with is sharing our knowledge with the policy that is getting written into local legislation that's being passed, as well as we work with a smaller area that reminds me a lot of Evanston, Alameda, that has passed a lot of really progressive policy faster than San Francisco. And so I would say that Evanston can probably lean on Alameda and their legislation that they've passed. They've been a really huge champion. They're looking to go 100% zero waste really quickly. And I think what we've learned is that with smaller communities, you can get things done a lot quicker than in big cities. And so you can also be kind of this pioneer of change. And I'm happy to help any way that I can to move things forward in the Midwest, and we'll hopefully be there very, very soon. And I will say the plug that we say that works the best, and I think that if there are funds to help with this type of initiative, I think that we see the best is putting that toward restaurants to eliminate that delta between reuse and single use. And it's usually not that much, but it is enough that the restaurants don't want to take on that financial burden. But that's a great way to get that bridge change of looking at making those dollars work really, really hard. And so I'm sure there might be questions. I always get questions.
We're doing the questions collectively.
Okay,
so
great.
that was amazing to hear from you, Maya. And I, again, like am dreaming up partnerships and want to hear really like what are the concrete next steps we can take to make this happen in Evanston.
Right.
And someone who might have some insight about that, but also other great things to say to us is our next presenter, Liam Engel. He is the Greenest Region Corps member for the city of Evanston, working in the Office of Sustainability. Liam's work focuses on waste policy and outreach, and he's excited to support sustainable programming during Earth Month. He is planning on continuing his education as a PhD student this fall, focused on urban ecological research that incorporates municipal environmental policy. All right, so thank you so much, and take it away. Liam, I don't see you up here. Are you here?
Hello, am I here?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me, CGE. Love always working with everyone at CGE, and also thanks for the other panelists. I've already also been writing down things that I think we should incorporate in Evanston, and I'm sure we'll be more in contact. So I'm going to share about like various city initiatives that are around waste. So let me know if this works right. Okay. It's coming.
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I'm going to focus on Sustain Evanston and also a bunch of other city initiatives in Evanston that we're working on in the Office of Sustainability. So as a brief outline, I'm going to talk about the Climate Action and Resilience Plan in Evanston, then talk about Sustain Evanston, some other like outreach programs, some future ordinances, and changes we've made to our composting programs. So first, I want to talk about the Climate Action Resilience Plan. It was adopted in 2018, and under the zero waste section, we have the goal of increasing community waste diversion over time, with 50% waste diversion by 2025 being the most immediate goal. And as you can see from our 2019 data, we are not yet near that level of waste diversion, which we need to get to in just a few years. So I'll be outlining some ways throughout the presentation that the city is planning on closing that gap. But I wanted to point out one thing just from this data, which is that like, although our residential waste diversion is on its way towards 50%, our waste from business and commerce is quite far behind. And since commercial waste accounts for 53% of all the waste produced in Evanston, this makes an outsized impact on Evanston's overall waste diversion. So that's an area that I've been focusing on a lot. So one way in which we are working on improving this commercial waste diversion is through the Sustain Evanston program. The Sustain Evanston program highlights businesses that are located within Evanston city limits that are leaders in sustainability. And the program was launched in 2019. Participating businesses are shown here on the map on the left, which is available on like the sustainevanston.com website. And since then, we have revised and expanded the program for a 2021 relaunch this May, which is expanding from its original 2 business types, the office, retail, and restaurants, business types to now include healthcare, landscaping, and spa and beauty and wellness businesses as well. And this year, all participating businesses will be required to reach 50% waste diversion through the use of recycling and composting services. And then besides that requirement, businesses will choose 7 or 8 other sustainability actions out of around like 20 to 30 options. And many of them are unique to the specific business type. And for example, like the restaurant type, I added in one requirement that is that all of like the add-ons, like what Maya really works on, like the cutlery and dishware, like all of that has to be opt-in rather than opt-out when people are taking to-go orders, because I've heard from a lot of residents about how they found that frustrating, especially during the last year. So through participation, businesses will receive $250 and also a bunch of special recognition from the city. And though this program will not like single-handedly fix commercial waste diversion's low rates, we see it as a leadership opportunity for those Evanston businesses that have already made significant sustainability progress to demonstrate the possibilities and also to provide feedback on any hurdles they face while we're developing further legislation. So for more info, or if you're an interested business, you can check out sustainevanston.com. I will be updating the website next week. So check it out in a few more days, but it is coming soon. So another way we have looked to increase Evanston's commercial diversion rates is through changing the fee on garbage collection for properties that use the city's commercial hauler. The goal of this increase was to encourage businesses to divert more waste. And we did that by raising the price of garbage collection, but not recycling on properties with more than once a week pickup. So in December and January, I reached out to 75 businesses that would be most affected by the fee increase on garbage and talked to them about how to offset their garbage price increase by reducing their garbage service, increasing recycling, and reducing their overall waste. And I also tried to demonstrate the cost savings available by using this waste generation calculator, which is partially shown here, where you can enter your current and proposed service and see how the cost would change under different scenarios. So this increase in communication with different businesses, many of whom had not had much interaction with the city around their waste services before, will, I think, be a really valuable part of encouraging further commercial waste diversion to meet Evanston's goals. And additionally, the waste generation calculator, which one of the sustainability interns, Louis, developed in office, is now being used for the Sustain Evanston program as well. And I've added in like a composting section since all of the businesses are going to have composting service. So that's a fun little addition. So both the Sustain Evanston program and the business recycling outreach are helping to pave the way for implementation of a new ordinance that the Office of Sustainability is working on right now, which is a universal access ordinance, which would expand recycling and composting service to all Evanston commercial properties, with the eventual goal of expanding it to all residents. And although this is just in the works right now, the effects of this ordinance would be really big for our goals. It would increase the percentage of businesses participating in recycling from about 45% of commercial accounts to 100%. And additionally, it would increase composting participation from just a few businesses in Evanston to 100% as well. And since, as seen in this 2019 waste breakdown, food waste and paper alone account for nearly 50% of garbage headed to the landfill in Evanston, this ordinance would bring the city a long way towards meeting our 2025 waste reduction goal. So Evanston has 2 composting programs, which are helping us move towards our goals. And of course, we also encourage backyard composting. There's a nice page on the city's website about how to start backyard composting when possible to eliminate the need for hauling. So the food and yard waste program is operated through the city's waste hauler and serves over 6,000 residents currently. The city is also in talks with our commercial waste hauler to expand the service to have the ability to serve all Evanston residents. with residents given the choice between the food and yard waste program or participation in one of collective resource composts programs. This would increase the residential waste diversion rate substantially, and it's already at like 40%. So I would be really interested to see where it goes with this, and give more options to residents. And in conjunction with this expansion of the food and yard waste program, collective resource compost, which is the city's official compost hauler, has been expanding its service options as well. So besides basic composting service, residents are now able to participate in a neighbor program that substantially reduces the cost for each participant, or drop off up to 5 gallons of compost for $5 at the Evanston rebuilding warehouse. And there's going to be more options soon for drop-off locations as well. And as also, like with the Evanston Public Library's Robert Cronbench location, the office is funding a 6-month pilot program to provide composting service through a drop-off location at the library for like 10 nearby families. And with this pilot, we're hoping to see the issues that residents face with composting, and this will help us structure expansions to composting accordingly, like through the Universal Access Ordinance. Yeah, so well, that's kind of it. I maybe rushed through a bit of it, but there's a ton of information there, and I'd be happy to talk about any of it as we go through it, or like go back to a slide. Thanks.
Thank you, Liam. This session came together so beautifully. It's like you all were just layered one on top of the other. So I want to thank all the presenters. I want to encourage you to drop contact information in the chat, presenters, and attendees. Please put your questions in the Q&A. That will help me to. Although here's one from the chat. Have you had any issues with local plastics manufacturing creating campaigns to undermine your efforts, as in it will kill jobs? Anyone can take that. I guess this is sort of more towards Maya or
I'm happy to share. Yeah, we actually saw quite a bit of, this was around when the pandemic had first hit, and our business kind of shut down overnight because we were operating downtown San Francisco for lunch, like the lunch crowd. So we had to rebuild our company, but there was a lot of, I'm calling it, plastic propaganda that was like, plastics are safer and, reuse is dead. And we just kept thinking like, we can't combat, this kind of narrative. And then we kept reaching out to customers and asking, are you comfortable with reuse? And then when the science came out and said, it's not how the virus was being transmitted, we found that people who were open to reuse before the pandemic were still really enthusiastic about it. And people that weren't before still weren't. So we moved forward. And so I think they have a lot of funds, and they have a lot of experts that are willing to write op-eds and spend a lot of money. But the more that we can do to educate people, and we've seen people, it's not hard to be better than plastic. I'll put it that way.
So just to reinforce that, old public health policy wonk, it's a respiratory disease. All of that push actually came from the industry to move in that direction. And we really need to reset the knowledge base from and share the updated CDC guidelines. Now that we have the scientists are back in charge at CDC, we need to share that with everyone to make sure everyone's level set. It still is a respiratory disease. Please still wear a mask when you can. And we do not, and reuse is a great option. The other thing I just wanted to note that was in the chat is how important schools and other institutions like that are. Our cafeteria has really moved to reuse, and it is absolutely, and that's, so many of us grew up with schools where both at universities as well as at K-12, that's what was the norm. This is also true in really large corporations that also have their own cafeterias or food service. Really want to encourage folks to think that way. And I want to encourage you, if you're in a faith-based organization, to think about adopting some zero waste principles for the faith-based organization, for an NGO, you know, if you're one of the YW or YMs or an organization. I know Rotary is part of this. Rotary would be great for you to have that as some principles. So just some things to think about, because I think we can really make an impact if if it becomes more normalized in terms of moving forward in that way.
We've also seen, speaking of, you know, moving people in the right direction, corporations and big organizations. Our buildings are penalized if you don't sort your waste properly in San Francisco and Oakland. And so from a financial standpoint, reusability actually turns into an ability to avoid fees and fines from the city. And so that's actually, whether or not they are environmentalists, a lot of facilities directors have been really excited to partner with us again to start to reduce those waste sorting fees, as well as if you create more waste than you're allotted, you are charged fees. So I think also introducing penalties to big waste creators is a great way to, you know, it's carrot stick. So like you kind of have to balance what you
I do feel like
what you
San
do.
Francisco is a real model city around a lot of this stuff. There's a question in the chat directed to Liam. Does the universal access ordinance, would it make it mandatory for businesses to recycle and compost?
Yeah, yes, it would, is the short answer. So, and that would apply to I saw like the second part was asking about like schools and other institutions. So it would be every property that's under like the commercial franchise agreement. I like tried to avoid a lot of that language because it's just like wonky and doesn't really mean a lot. But like that would include basically every large property in Evanston. The other agreement we have is like the residential one. So that would include schools and other big institutions. And like Maya and Andrea were saying, like a lot of those institutions are and have been like really helpful in supporting our work.
And just one quick note. I mean, I think there is, someone else was noting about, and I think the carrot stick piece is also really important to right size, right? So a large university has much more capacity to reach and achieve these kind of goals, just as we as a large aquarium were able to do that when we mobilized our resources, while small local businesses may need incentives like the grants that we were suggesting. And that's why we're trying to right size, as we're having similar discussions with the City of Chicago ordinance, providing grants for the smaller, especially BIPOC community owned restaurants, and making sure that we're lifting up and providing resources to achieve these goals, while holding larger institutions like hospitals and large universities more responsible for taking a lead as they have more resources and more capacity.
Yeah, I'm also, this whole grant idea is something I feel like some partnering could happen around, and because Doreen asked about, do the sorting fees disproportionately affect small businesses? So how can we compensate for that through some grants?
And also making sure that you're writing in the legislation that takes that into account too. It's really important, but that's right. Design here, the people that are held the highest fees are the largest organizations and the largest waste producers. So
that carrot stick conversation is a big one. I mean, Mark is asking, recycling from business likely places plastic in the recycle bin. Have you tracked what happens to plastic? Does anybody want to say a few words about kind of the myth of plastic recycling?
That only 9% of plastic gets recycled.
Yeah.
Because it's not valuable, right? That's kind of unfortunate. But also I think that until manufacturers are held responsible, and I think Andrea was the one to talk about that might have been Jacqueline, someone was mentioned that manufacturers need to be held responsible for their downstream implications. They can't just be producing virgin plastic single-use containers without being penalized for it, because we are paying for the waste removal. We're paying for it from an environmental standpoint. And I think until we start to hold those manufacturers responsible for that downstream impact, and that's something I'm very, very, very passionate about, we won't see sweeping change from their behavior. And so I think that that's a key piece to start to curb that creation and the cycle to at least start to slow if they're being held responsible.
That's where we apply the stick.
That's where you apply the stick.
And that's where it's really important that we not only talk about restaurants, and I really love the discussion about restaurants, but there was a really good point about plastic film, and the manufacturers are really moving towards everything being in these plastic pouches or film. And that is, really being an influx into retail. That is where we need to absolutely, I agree with Maya on we need to hold producers responsible, because that's increasingly ending up in our waste stream. I watched some cat food that had been in a tin completely convert to these pouches and entirely unavailable to buy in anything other than that. And we need to hold the producers and the retailers who are buying them responsible for not moving in that direction. So because I think we so often talk about restaurants because there's a really great win there. It's not that I'm discouraging that positive move there, but in terms of where some of this nonsense waste is coming from, we need to make sure that we shine a light strong there. And one last thing on that, some of our big retailers that we go to, whether it's a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods or whatever, or wherever, they have the power to push back on those folks and say, we're not going to accept that. We're not bringing that into our business. So stop using that. And that's also something we really need to leverage our power on. This is, and the last thing I'll say is plastic is about collective impact. It is a collective impact movement, and we're successful because all of us work together. So, let's keep that momentum.
And I would say that your voice is especially, don't underestimate the consumer's power to make change. One of the reasons why Imperfect Produce even engaged with us on reusing their gel packs was because too many of their customers were canceling their memberships because of the waste. And we started our pilot with just San Francisco, and we sent one email. They sent one email, and they had like 70% participation. And that's why they rolled it out nationally. And so now they have a program, but because enough consumers complained and enough consumers pushed back and enough consumers said, no, we're not going to support you as a business. You can do that across the board. It doesn't have to be just in food service. It could be anywhere. Like, I don't want this. We will no longer, dollars speak really, really loudly. And so I think that there can be, I've seen a lot of change because of that. And again, Imperfect Produce is a great, I think they're certified B Corp. Either way, they're a great organization that wants to do the right thing, but sometimes they need that additional financial incentive from customers saying like, no, we're not going to spend our money with you.
Painfully, I do need to wrap us up. We're moving into our next session shortly, which is going to be about